After being captured, we were going through the rest of the German lines that were still approaching for this battle, and that's where the SS were very mean to us. They took everything that we had, beat us up, tried to run us over with their vehicles, but fortunately we dodged them. Then we were taken to an interrogation center, and from there we were marched to a railroad, put in boxcars, about 80, 90 men in a boxcar. You could only stand up. You couldn't even lean on anything. And we were there for days until we got to a camp that was Hammelburg, Stalag 13C. Then this was a real prison camp. After being there for a while and having very poor conditions, some of our prisoners died from the cold. They died from malnutrition and the cruelty of the guards. We had an opportunity to go to a work camp, and a few of us volunteered to go to this work camp. We figured maybe there'd be food, we could get an opportunity to eat something. So we wound up in Schweinfurt, my group, clearing the bombed out rubble on the main avenues, the Hitlerstrasse and the Wilhelmstrasse. We would take the debris off the center of the road and push it to the edges. And I escaped from that area, and I was recaptured after a few days. So we wound up in the prison in Nuremberg. Shortly after that, they started evacuating the camp. So they're sending all the prisoners out of the camp, so they're going to go on another forced march. Well, I told Howard, I'm not going to go marching anymore. Let's try to hide in the camp. So we tried dodging here and dodging there, getting rousted out by different guards. Eventually, we had to go out of the camp anyway, but we were at the end of the column. We were not in the middle of it. And Howard and I were both wounded in the leg, so we were limping badly, so we couldn't keep up with the column anyway. And I faked it a little more by just showing that I just couldn't walk faster. So there was one guard stayed with us, and he was trying his darndest to make us catch up to the column. He was a cruel man. He would kick us in the leg, anything to aggravate the situation, but he couldn't get two stubborn mules, Howard being from Missouri, and even though I'm not from there, I'm very stubborn. So we fell further behind until we couldn't even hear the column anymore. But this guard was so insistent that I told Howard, there's only one thing we have to do. We can't get away from this guy because he's like a leech. He's latched onto us and won't let loose. So we're going to have to dispatch him. So Howard agreed that that's the only thing that we can do. So this being in the middle of the night, and we're up in the mountains on a mountain road, we found a good spot, got him by surprise, and unfortunately we had to do the deed. So then we stayed there till dawn, and we got away from that area. We had to be very careful, but at least now I had a pistol, and we had a knife from the guard. So we were working our way through toward the front. We finally got to where you could hear the shooting, and late at night, about 6 or 7 that evening, we could hear voices, and far off, but the shouting of American voices saying, there's one, get him, and German voices, you know, the shooting at the front. So we figured, well, now we're going to be very, very careful here because the Germans will be coming through where we are, and the Americans should be following. But instead, just like on a movie set, everything just stopped. Not another voice, not another shot. So here we are in the middle of the night, sweating out another night. And I didn't know whether the Americans only got that far and pulled back, or whether the Germans would be coming through or what. So during the night, a 3-man German patrol came through, and they spotted us laying on the ground. So they came close, and fortunately one of them was a decent type. I explained to him that we were prisoners, that we were wounded and we were sick. Krank is sick, wounded for wounded, and that we couldn't walk, and that's why the guards had left us. So he spoke with us a little while, and then he said, Gefangen, that's a prisoner. He says, schlafen, sleep. He says, morgen American is coming. In the morning, the Americans are coming. And then he said, Deutschland, alles kaputt, alles kaputt. And then they took off on their business, and we were left. So here we knew that the Americans are out there, but we couldn't see them. So in the morning, we figured, okay, we'll see them. Morning came, nothing. There wasn't even a bird peeping. It's very strange when you don't even hear birds at dawn. So a German civilian with a bicycle, an elderly man, was coming down, so I stopped him. And he said, it's all right, it's all right. He says, Americans say he's all right. And I asked him where he's going. He was going to his sister's village. It seems that the Americans were taking his village, and they wanted him out of there so he wouldn't get hurt. So he was going to his sister's village, down the road a piece. So I told him, go ahead, and we watched him go down to the road, and then suddenly 2 rifle shots came out, and he went down. And I looked at Howard, and I heard a voice, it's a southern accent, say, damn, when I say halt, I mean halt. I looked at Howard, I said, I didn't hear any halt. He says, I didn't either. So then the man says, don't move, I'm coming down there. He says, don't move. So I said, Howard, here's our chance. When this fellow gets out into the open where we can see him, we have to explain that we're Americans and we've escaped, and you know, this is the lines. I said, but we have to be careful because this guy's trigger happy. So we separated about 30 feet apart, and Howard was watching him, and I was crouched on the ground. And when Howard gave me the signal, he was down there, I yelled out to him, hey, Yank, don't shoot. I'm coming out with my hands up. I'm an American. I said, don't shoot. I'm coming out with my hands up. So, of course, I couldn't see the man, but Howard told me later, this guy was, you know, come out, come out. So I said, don't shoot. I said, I'm an American. I'm from New York, you understand? He says, okay, Yank. He says, get out here. So I went out with my hands up, and when he saw me, he lowered his gun. He says, damn, he says, what happened to you? Because I looked so bedraggled after this time in prison there. So then he says, come on, let's get out of here. There's Germans all around. So I said, where did I get my buddy? He says, there's more of you? And I said, who do you think was covering while I came out? I didn't want to wind up like him. So his face turned white. He realized that he had been under the gun and didn't realize it. So then he says, come on, let's get out of here. I said, what about him? He says, the hell with him. I said, you have medics up there? He says, yes. I said, well, let's drag him up. He said, I'm not touching him. So Howard and I dragged the poor man up. He had a broken shin bone, one of the bullets. And he was in terrible pain, but I couldn't help it. We couldn't carry him. So we got him up there, and there's all the Americans, tanks, soldiers, and everything. And we finally made it to the lines. Now that we were in the American lines, fortunately, we felt great, and we had something to eat for the first time in a long time, real food, bacon and eggs. Then the German prisoners were down by the railroad behind a fence, and we went down to look at them, and one of the fellows that was there says, "Hey," he says, "let me take your picture." So I said, "Gee, that would be great." So Howard and I are standing this side of the fence with all these Germans on the other side, and you can tell by the smile on our face the happiness that we had, first of all, being in the American lines again, and secondly, because we're free,